The mysteries of the Mesozoic Era, the Jurassic Period. 199 million years ago, the Triassic Period ends. The Jurassic Period is coming. The active disintegration of the supercontinent Pangaea continues. After the mass extinction, nature began to gradually recover. But after the giant continent split, animals could no longer move freely across the planet. Abundant rain began to soak the ancient Triassic deserts. The world became greener again, with more lush vegetation. When Pangaea began to split, new seas and straits arose, harboring new types of animals and algae. Sponges and bryozoans, starfish and sea lilies. Five-armed sea lilies became widespread in the Jurassic Period. Giant coral reefs formed, sheltering numerous ammonites. The ancestors of octopuses and squids called belemnites appeared. In the Jurassic seas, there were many different kinds of fish. These included ray sharks, as well as bony, cartilaginous, and ganoid fishes. The ray-finned fishes occupied the dominant niche in the Jurassic. The largest ray-finned fish of the time was Litzichthys. The sea creature reached 52 feet in length and fed on plankton like modern whales and whale sharks. In the Jurassic, the first herpetofishes appeared. Cartilaginous fishes continue to be in decline, apparently because their Dinosaurs and sauropterygians successfully compete with sharks. One of the oldest shark-like fishes, Helicoprion, which has been known since the Carboniferous period, becomes extinct during this period. There are fewer ammonites in the Jurassic than in the Triassic. Belemnites were close relatives of modern cuttlefish and squid. These sea creatures had a cigar-shaped internal skeleton. Belemnites, like modern octopuses and squids, produced an inky liquid and used it to create a smokescreen when trying to escape predators. Bivalves, especially those belonging to the oyster family, also developed considerably in the Jurassic seas. Among the Jurassic gastropod mollusks, there are two genera that have survived unchanged to the present day. These are the pondweed and the coelacanths. Sea urchins gradually evolved from an oblong shape to a round shape. Many different species of crocodiles lived on land, in lakes and rivers, and spread widely around the globe. Sea crocodiles with long snouts and sharp teeth for catching fish had their origins. Some varieties of crocodiles even grew flippers instead of legs to make it easier to swim. Tail fins allowed crocodiles to swim faster in the water than on land. New genera of fossil turtles are emerging, and modern turtles appear already at the end of the Jurassic Period. There appeared a huge number of species of plesiosaurs and euoplocephalus, which seriously competed with the new fast-moving sharks and extremely agile bony fish. Freshwater bodies of water were home to large numbers of amphibians. These are almost modern salamanders, frogs, and worms. Many crustaceans appear. These are barnacles, decapods, leaf-legged crayfish, and freshwater sponges. As we know, the first ichthyosaurs appeared back in the Triassic Period. In the Jurassic Period, these reptiles were perfectly adapted to life. Although ichthyosaurs belong to reptiles, their fossil remains suggest that these animals were viviparous and produced ready-made offspring like mammals. Ichthyosaur calves may have been born in the open sea like whales. Plesiosaurs were also a large group of predators that lived in the Jurassic seas. Plesiosaurs had a thick torso with four leaf-shaped limbs and a long serpentine neck with a small head. The marine predators hunted schools of small fish with their flexible necks. Another group of short-necked predatory reptiles are the plesiosaurs. Plesiosaurs spent their lives in deep water. Some large plesiosaurs also preyed on smaller plesiosaurs and euoplocephalus. The Jurassic seas were relatively shallow, so the remains of animals carried by sea currents or waves are well preserved in such places. The large vegetation of the Jurassic Period favored the widespread distribution of reptiles. The earliest dinosaurs appeared more than 200 million years ago. Over the 140 million years of their existence, these popular creatures have evolved into many diverse species. Dinosaurs spread across all continents and adapted to live in a wide variety of habitats. Some dinosaurs were no bigger than a squirrel, while others weighed more than 15 adult elephants combined. Some tumbled heavily on 4 legs. Others ran on 2 legs faster than Olympic sprint champions. Dinosaurs gave rise to the science of paleontology. So, most of the Jurassic dinosaurs belonged to the Saurischiae. But there was also a detachment of Pterosaurs dinosaurs or detachment Ornithischia, and the detachments were divided into suborders, among which the most famous ones, sauropodomorphs, stood out. Suborders in turn were divided into infraorders. The most popular infraorder is the sauropods. Sauropods moved on 4 legs and had 5 toes on their feet. Their main food was plant food. Sauropods had a long neck, a small head, and a long tail. At the moment between experts in paleontology, there is a serious debate about whether dinosaurs could have 2 brains. Some argue that the second brain was in such creatures as Stegosaurus. Others vehemently refute this theory. Sauropods with long necks roamed the ursine savannas and ate all the vegetation they could reach. When a herd of sauropods passed through, the dense forest turned into a lifeless desert. Sauropods were gregarious. In some species, adults took care of children and juveniles. In other sauropod species, the children grew up separately from their parents, and older individuals joined the herd. In a series of Jurassic Park movies, sauropods are shown chewing leaves and branches. In fact, sauropods bit off and immediately swallowed vegetation. The food went into the stomach and already they're grinded with the help of stones, which the animals swallowed in advance. And this is the most numerous family of Jurassic sauropods, the Diplodocidae, and their many varieties. The largest sauropod is considered to be Amphicoelius. The mass of this animal reached up to 150 tons, and the length up to 165 feet. Most individuals of the Diplodocus family did not exceed 80 feet and weighed no more than 40 tons. The Diplodocus family included such animals as Superosaurus, Apatosaurus, and of course, Diplodocus itself. Diplodocus appeared before many sauropods and is the oldest dinosaur. This herbivore reached up to 900 feet in length. A Supersaurus from the same family spent most of its life in swamps and lakes, where it grazed and escaped predators. Apatosaurus or Brontosaurus was quite tall, had a large hump on its back and a very thick tail. Like all diplodocs, Apatosaurus preferred to live in swampy areas. From the Diplodocus family came another family called Dicryosaurs. These were small animals compared to the diplodocs, no more than 32 feet long and no more than 4 tons in weight. This is the family Macronaria, the most diverse family after Diplodocus. There were few differences between these sauropods and the Diplodocus sauropods. These animals made louder sounds than the diplodocs due to the large leathery sacs under their noses. The most popular species among the Macronarians were the Brachiosaurs. Brachiosaurs could pull leaves from taller trees. Diplodocus could not do that. Although all Macronarians were small, Brachiosaurus was a true giant. The average animal was up to 90 feet long and weighed up to 50 tons. Brachiosaurus needed a daily diet of 1,100 pounds of green matter. The smallest sauropods of the Jurassic period were considered an ankylosaur, up to 14 feet long and only up to 66 pounds in weight. Which sauropod had the longest neck? Mamenchisaurus. With a total body length of 80 feet, the herbivore had a neck length of 50 feet. There were also primitive sauropods in the Jurassic period. They were volcanodonts, ancestors of diplodocs and macronarians. The bones of these dinosaurs were not hollow like those of advanced sauropods, but were almost solid. Their necks were short, and their bodies were not adapted for total vegetation eating. Volcanodonts could eat grass and eat trees, but in much smaller quantities than their descendants. These animals could weigh up to 48 tons and be up to 60 feet long. Another ancestor of sauropods that lived in the early Jurassic period, Shunnosaurus. This animal differed from other representatives of prosauropods in that it had a mace on its tail. This weapon was used to defend itself from its enemies. In the middle of the Jurassic period, the prosauropods could not compete with evolution and quietly died out. And of course, the Jurassic period was a thriving suborder of pteropods. Pteropods represented all the predatory dinosaurs on our planet. Predators moved on 2 legs, which were almost identical to those of birds. Many pteropods incubated their eggs like birds. Some pteropods had feathers. It was long believed that birds evolved from pteropods. Now most paleontologists agree that birds separated from the main line of archosaurs in the Triassic, and the similarity of theropods with birds. Just a joke of parallel evolution. The front and limbs of theropods are superficially similar to those of humans, but the bone and muscle structure of theropods is quite different. Their hands were much less mobile than ours. Theropods could not rotate their hands, turning them palm up or palm down. And some predators could not bend their fingers at all. So, what theropods lived in the Jurassic period? A group called cephalozoids. These nimble predatory creatures reached up to 1.5 meters in length and weighed up to 660 pounds. The small cephalozoids were not true predators. They fed on insects and carrion. The larger species preyed on sauropods and prosauropods when these animals were small. The largest cephalozoid was thought to be Dilophosaurus. There is a loud debate among paleontologists about what Dilophosaurus looked like. Did this animal have a hood and did it spit venom? That's the big question. Another line of theroposaurs was represented by ceratosaurs. Scientists very often credited new and unknown species of dinosaurs to the ceratosaurs, and so this suborder became very numerous. It contained animals from 3 feet and up to 40, and the weight could range from a few pounds to 1 ton. Some ceratosaurs evolved a herbivorous lifestyle. Then the theropods split into perfect and imperfect predators. The perfect predators became known as titanurans. The oldest representatives of titanuras were Creolophosaurus and Pterosaurs. Creolophosaurus is interesting because it lived in Antarctica and calmly endured winter frosts. The next family of Jurassic theropods were megalosaurids or giant lizards. Megalosaurids were large predators up to 40 feet long and up to 5 tons in weight. These animals preyed on young individuals of large sauropods and also ate the bodies of older individuals that had died their deaths. The largest predator in this family was Torvosaurus. Torvosaurus had huge sharp teeth like the teeth of a saw. It used these teeth to tear through the flesh of its victims. Megalosaurids inhabited every part of the globe. Paleontologists have found remains in North America, Europe, and Africa. Early in their evolution, individuals of this family were frail and small, but the later megalosaurids were true giant monsters. Muscular forelimbs helped in hunting large herbivorous dinosaurs. Sharp claws undoubtedly left horrible lacerations in the flanks of prey taken by surprise. The mighty neck of the predator allowed him to thrust his dagger-like fangs deep into the body of his prey and tear out huge chunks of still warm meat. Another infra-order of theropods that deserves attention are the carnosaurs. Jurassic carnosaurs were up to 40 feet in size and weighed up to 5 tons. The most famous of the carnosaurs was the Allosaurus. Despite their large size, allosaurs were quite agile. At a short distance, predators developed speed up to 120 pounds per hour, and strong and dexterous hands Allosaurus allowed confidently grab small vert prey. Many paleontologists believe that allosaurs gathered in packs and attacked stotosauropods by selecting relatively small individuals. There is also a theory that adult Allosaurus took care of offspring, in particular gave the children part of the extracted meat. By the way, Allosaurus was not the biggest carnosaur. The biggest carnosaur was Epantherius. This theropod reached about 40 feet in length, making this animal larger than the Allosaurus. Epantherius, like Allosaurus, could probably use its jaw like an axe, stabbing at its prey. All other theropods are classified as coelurosaurs. Many of the raptors had feathers similar to those of modern birds. For a long time, birds were thought to be descendants of coelurosaurs. The common ancestor of all coelurosaurs is thought to be Prehistoric. The suborder Coelurosaurus consists of 3 infraorders. These are the 4-footed celluloid dinosaurs. The second infraorder is represented by the Campsognoids, which are small theropods up to 7 pounds in weight. The diet of these small predators consisted of rodents and insects, and the third infraorder consisted of the Tyrannosauridae. Jurassic tyrannosaurids were the ancestors of the famous Tyrannosaurus. The predators were no more than 14 feet long and had primitive downy plumage. Well, all further thyropods bear the common name of maniraptors. They were originally thought to be the direct ancestors of birds, but it turns out that maniraptors have nothing to do with birds. This is what one of the maniraptor suborder looks like, Epidexepteryx. These creatures were at first no more than 6 feet long, and then began to shrink. These small predators were mostly arboreal. The famous Stegosaurus was a slow-moving armored herbivorous dinosaur. This animal belonged to the suborder Thyreophora. Stegosaurus ranged in size from 14 to 40 feet. Weights ranged from 330 pounds to 4.5 tons. Huge ridges on their backs and dangerous spines on their tails were necessary weapons against predators. Stegosaurs grazed in herds. The adults took care of the children. Also from the suborder Pterosaurs, a second infraorder, the Ankylosaurs, was distinguished. These animals relied on stronger passive defenses. The Ankylosaur's body was covered with bony plates. In the Jurassic, Ankylosaurs were just forming. The shells of Jurassic herbivores were not yet very strong. Jurassic ankylosaurs were 13 feet long and weighed 1 ton. And this is a suborder of birds and pelvic dinosaurs, sauropods. The main infratribe of sauropods were the ornithopods. These herbivorous dinosaurs lived in forests and did not defend themselves from predators, but simply ran away from them. Jurassic ornithopods reached up to 26 feet in length and weighed up to 1,500 pounds. At the end of the Jurassic period, from ornithopods separated Morganocephalus, which began to grow horns on the head. In the suborder, Pterosaurs dinosaurs, a special family stands apart, Heterodontosaurus. They are the only dinosaurs that had incisors, canines, and molars, almost like mammals. Heterodontosaurs occupied the ecological niche of modern pigs in the Jurassic period. The animals dug out of the earth with their forelimbs, chewed cones and nuts with their advanced teeth, were not afraid of insects, and on occasion caught and ate small animals. Also in the Jurassic period there were separate species of Psittazoan dinosaurs, which did not belong to any of the large groups. Many small predators with beak-like jaws appear. These are the scaly Lepidosauros. Today, modern Africa is home to herd animals such as gazelles, buffalo, and zebras. Huge herds of many thousands migrate from one part of Africa to another. The Jurassic period saw the birth of something similar. Thousands of hadrosaurs, huddled together in herds, traveled across the ancient lands of our planet. Hadrosaurs nibbled low vegetation with their horny beaks and then chewed it with their strong molars. After the Triassic-Jurassic extinction, a single superorder of the Ruroraceae survived. These were the crocodilomorphs. At the very beginning of the Jurassic, Sphenozoans dominated. These animals reached only up to 5 feet in length. Other members of the crocodilomorphs were even smaller. The protozoans reached 3 feet in length and weighed no more than 88 pounds. Over time, the group evolved and split into several new groups. The more advanced group was represented by the Thalatozeuchians, which were saltwater crocodiles that had legs that turned into fins. Thalatozeuchians are divided roughly in half into 2 families, the Metriorhynchidae and the Teleosaurus. Metriorhynchids were 20 feet long and lived on the high seas. The marine predators had acquired a tail fin and were accustomed to drinking seawater. Like sea turtles, Metriorhynchids only came ashore to lay eggs. Teleosaurs could grow up to 30 feet tall and lived off the coast. In appearance and behavior, these creatures were virtually identical to modern crocodiles. The ancestors of modern crocodiles belonged to the Neozoan group. They were goniophilidids, which could reach up to 14 feet in length and looked almost like modern crocodiles, and small rat-like Landatoposaurids. In the Jurassic period, insect evolution accelerated dramatically. Ancient nature was filled with a never-ending buzzing and crackling sound that produced many new species of insects that crawled and flew everywhere. Among them were the ancestors of today's ants, bees, earwigs, flies, and wasps. Many different dragonflies, beetles, cicadas, bedbugs, and spiders appeared. Later, in the Cretaceous period, a new evolutionary explosion occurred when insects began to make contact with newly emerged flowering plants. During the Jurassic period, thousands of pterosaurs took to the air. These were the first and largest flying vertebrates belonging to the archosaurs. The evolution of these animals took off during the Jurassic period. The most famous pterosaurs of the early Mesozoic were pterodactyl and Rhamphorhynchus. Rhamphorhynchus had long tails, long narrow wings, and a large skull with many teeth. Rhamphorhynchus could fly from the ground. The masters of the sky settled on the banks of rivers, lakes, and seas. Rhamphorhynchus wingspans could reach up to 10 feet. Rhamphorhynchus chicks could fly and feed on their own as soon as they hatched from the egg. Prominent among the Rhamphorhynchs is the family Onoragnotidae. They were small insect-eating Rhamphorhynchids about the size of a sparrow. In the mid-Jurassic period, pterodactyls evolved from the Onoragnotidae. These pterosaurs had wings of a more efficient design and did not need a tail to maneuver in the air. In size and lifestyle, pterodactyls did not differ from the Rhamphorhynchus. Many pterodactyls had a long ossified crest on their heads to improve aerodynamics. The flying creatures fed on fish, sometimes sea lilies, mollusks, and insects. To take off, pterodactyls had to jump from rocks or trees. The first birds also appeared in the Jurassic period. The ancestors of the first birds were ancient crouching pseudozoans, which lived in the Triassic period and gave rise to dinosaurs and crocodiles. 3 genera of Jurassic bird-like creatures are known. Archaeopteryx is a maniraptor rather than a bird, and Longeopteryx is almost certainly a bird, something like a modern kingfisher. But birds were still very rare in the Jurassic. Another genus of animals that began to flourish in the Jurassic is the lepidosauromorphs, ancestors of lizards and snakes. Most Jurassic lepidosauromorphs are classified as sauropterygians. These are marine reptiles with a lifestyle similar to modern seals. The largest suborder of Jurassic sauropterygians is the Plesiosaurs. They are large to very large predators with short necks, elongated heads, and large mouths. Plesiosaurs could reach lengths of up to 65 feet. Plesiosaurs had an interesting feature. It is a special design of nostrils, which served not for breathing, but solely for sniffing water. Plesiosaurs differed from plesiosaurs by having a small head on a long neck. Plesiosaurs were also predators, but they fed on smaller prey. Jurassic plesiosaurs ranged from 16 to 26 feet in length. There were few lizards in the Jurassic. More than half were beak-headed lizards like modern Gothera. Some of the lizards lived in freshwater bodies of water. The Jurassic genus Synapsidae consisted of primitive animals, like modern platypuses and echidnas. The only known exception recently discovered is the otter-like beavertail. This animal reached up to 1 foot in length. Also of interest is the Fruithophosaurus, the first chipmunk-sized anteater in the history of the Earth. Among the mammals, predators appeared. Some of these animals adapted to life in trees. At the same time, about 160 million years ago, the first placental mammals also appear. For example, the ancestor of all placentals, Juramaia sinensis. Thank you for watching this episode to the end. Give it a thumbs up and leave a comment. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and also press the bell to not miss new and interesting releases